Welcome to Cyber Talk Tact. The role of the International Telecommunication Union has been to connect the world more digitally and to bridge the digital divide that exists today. But we are seeing a lot of threats in this domain as well, and one of it is that of cybersecurity threats. So, is cybersecurity a barrier to technology development and United Nations mission to facilitate the use of technology for the good? We have with us our guest, Mr. Tomas Lamanauskas, who is the managing partner at the Envision Associates and also the formerly held the position of senior advisor at the ITU. Welcome to Cyber Talk and Tact, sir.
Thank you very much, Sanjana. Thank you very much for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for accepting and for this particular interview. I would like to start with a question on Connect 2020 vision of the ITU. This was one of the most ambitious visions, in fact, one of the most ambitious projects to connect people to technology. What significant impact has the Connect 2020 agenda of the ITU created? What are the challenges that you have faced to actualize the 2020 mission of the ITU?
So thank you very much, Sanjana. And really, I was very honored to be involved from the beginning in creating and developing Connecting to 20 agenda, which was adopted by full consensus of the member states in the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference, and with over 100 national commitments to support that. And now it's continued in its new iteration as Connect 2030 agenda, but with basically the same vision being carried over. And of course, you already mentioned that there's pretty significant and ambitious agenda in a few ways. And the first way, that was actually first time when full global community of ITU member states, so all the countries around the world, agreed on measurable targets on ICT development, ICT sector development, and measurable targets around like 4 main pillars, which provide a comprehensive picture of the ICT development, from growth, so making sure that everything that ICTs are actually being developed and more of people get the connectivity, but also then, looking and zooming in and saying growth is not enough. We need to ensure that growth is inclusive, so inclusiveness, so ensuring that actually no one is left behind, and that was very strong message there. To then third, saying that any growth and any good thing also has a challenging side to it, and then talking about the sustainability in a broad sense, both environmental sustainability, but also managing other risks arising from the growth of ICTs, including cyber risks, and which you're focusing on. And then finally saying that the system, especially such a dynamic system as ICT development, needs to be constantly adjusted, and adjusting this very comprehensive and complex landscape. Therefore, innovation and partnerships are very important to ensure the consistent feedback loop adjustment, that technology fuels development, development fuels technology, and then also markets interact with both technology and governments, So in that feedback loop, we create like a consistent cycle of, sustainable and inclusive growth. So that was the big ambition. And as I said, that big ambition provided not only the direction, but measurable direction, so that we know where we are and how far we've come. And of course, in any, so among the challenges of, especially for the first time, actualizing that, among the challenges we're actually, convincing different stakeholders and actually engaging with different stakeholders to agree on a set of goals and a set of measurable targets, because always anything that's measurable sometimes risks leaving something out of the picture. But I think the most important idea that, if we don't measure, we don't know where we're going and how far we've gone, So, and I think really at that time was very proud of the work, on very collaborative work inside of ITU, but also with a huge setup of and selection of stakeholders, not selection, but a huge scope and scale of stakeholders that we involved and we achieved that, because it wasn't only just designed within the ITU community, it was designed with public consultations as well. And actually, it's in a way, another piece of it is, and for the listeners who are not that familiar with ITU, that ITU is also, even though it's like a one ICT, UN Agency for ICTs is also combined with different parts of it, so from radio communication sector, development sector, standardization sector, all supported by General Secretariat, so one of the both challenges and opportunities was to bring this all together in a one ITU setup and saying how we as an organization together achieve that. And again, that was, with all big respect to both colleagues in the Secretariat at the time, but also member states, we achieved that. So now, as you said, what's the impact? So in the impact, I think the couple of things. This one is, of course, it focuses the mind. So when countries are looking at the different objectives, it helps. Whenever it's measurable, whenever it's is assessed, it helps to focus where we need to go. So and actually it does focus the minds on achieving things, and it also focuses the mind not only on the ITU Secretariat or like ITU study groups or ITU other formats, but of the community at large, because these are set very tangible targets that people can measure themselves against, and that by itself galvanizes the action towards ICT development in this very cohesive way. And we see great achievements, especially in the growth area, in achieving really, if you look at the now results of the already measured results on Connect 2030 agenda, we see achievements in terms of the growth. We see penetration really growing nicely across the world, at least on average levels. We see penetration developing world also growing rather nicely. We see also the prices on average level, the affordability so-called gaps decreasing, and we see that ICTs are becoming more affordable across the world. We also see some gaps, and that's also when you measure this, it's also good to, because that is also identifies and allows to identify some gaps and development. And there are some very important gaps, like, for example, the connectivity in least developed countries, LDCs. It's really behind the targets, and it's not on the track. And that's actually, focuses, hopefully should focus policymakers' minds and global community minds, that's something that we should invest in. So, because behind the averages, and that's what's important about having this, comprehensive framework, that we cannot just hide behind the averages that the connectivity is growing fast, but then we say, look, is everyone growing? Does everyone have access to that, to the thing that's now becoming essential facility? And we see that least developed countries are really still behind it, and we need to invest more. We see other issues, for example, in gender gaps, and we see regretfully the gender gaps are not only decreasing, we're not only not achieving gender parity, but in some ways gender gaps are increasing, over some years, and especially again in these developed countries. And that's again something that we need to think and focus, and have targeted actions. We have some challenges again on sustainability area, for example, where we see that e-waste actually for now is increasing rather than decreasing. And if we see, like in 2016, we had around 45 megatons of e-waste. Now in 2019, the last statistics, we have nearly 54 megatons of e-waste. And in a way, of course, this is a natural outcome of just people use more ICT. So if we connect more people, if we give people more devices to use the internet, naturally e-waste is also increasing, but that's not good enough on the answer, So because we still need to, that just shows we need to work harder of making that development sustainable. We also see that still, the things to be done in terms of, let's say, innovation policies across the countries is still not many countries, and not enough countries have, let's say, comprehensive innovation policy in ICTs, and there's still, things that is future-proofing the development. So that, again, I think is very important aspect of Connect 2020 and our Connect 2030 agenda, that it galvanizes action. It allows us to progress faster as a community, because we know where we all are going, but it also shines light on some areas where we still need to do better And I think that's, some of them are mentioned. And actually here we need to kind of then as a community to see what are the actions we need to take so that we actually do better. Thank you very much, Sanjana, for this question.
Thank you so much. We also see, like you mentioned in your answer, that we see that there's rising e-waste. And today, e-waste is also, in fact, it's also one of the areas which is facilitating a lot of cybercrime. And therefore, there are a lot of cybersecurity challenges that come on the way. So, my question to you is what's the role of ITU in cybersecurity and in fighting cybercrime?
Thank you very much. And ITU has had a role in cybersecurity in for a few decades now, and it's playing its important role. It's playing its important role in the community, let's say, of other organizations, because as ICT is such, and as well as cybersecurity is the landscape is rather complex, and no single organization, no single stakeholder can tackle everything. I think ITU's very, very important achievements in this regard was what they call leveling up. So helping really the world and developing countries to bring, especially what we call day-to-day cybersecurity, to a higher level. So ensuring that, their citizens and the organizations know how to be protected and are protected, from the kind of basic, what they sometimes call hygienic kind of issues, so that at least that gives a level where we can, then bring things up. So, and ITU has played a very important role in, again, building capacity of the countries in this regard on cybersecurity, and helping them in taking and implementing organization and technical measures. So, for example, I'm again really proud of looking what ITU colleagues, have done, especially in the development sector, from, providing assistance to more than 80 countries to date on national cybersecurity preparedness and incident response capabilities assessment, implementing over 20 computer incident response team related projects, basically setting up those teams, national teams in countries, conducting over 30 cyber drills involving more than 100 countries, developing guidance and helping countries to develop and implement national cybersecurity strategies. So it's really a lot of movement in that regard in helping countries to have the basic cyber preparedness. But of course, and then finally, and is working with a lot of other organizations, big landscape organizations, ensuring that, we all work together and help countries progress in that regard. And here is an important role that ITU has also played in the broader UN family to ensure that UN-wide response is really coordinated and is really done in a responsive and efficient manner. So again, I had a pleasure in my tenure or my stint in ITU as a head of corporate strategy to be involved in also the effort which ITU and UNODC, UN Office for Drugs and Crime, led with 33 other UN agencies to develop a UN-wide framework on cybersecurity and cybercrime, which was later endorsed by UN Chief Executive's Board for Coordination, and showing again that UN family is very well coordinated. Then, so that's within the UN family, but ITU, of course, has built important links with other cybersecurity-related organizations, from again Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, which again I had the pleasure to represent ITU and the very origins of it. When the forum was set up, in Global Space Conference in The Hague, to also other organizations such as Global Cybersecurity Capacity Center at University of Oxford, and initiatives done by Interpol, by World Economic Forum, and so on, and I already mentioned UN Office of Drugs and Crime. So this is, I think, in this big community and families, ITU is playing very, very important role in helping countries, to ensure that they are, not just have connectivity, but have both secure but also resilient connectivity as well, and that people are protected. Just maybe one thing I also don't forget to mention is protecting the most vulnerable in the cyberspace, especially children. And again, ITU has very important initiatives in child mind protection area. Again, that was part of my remit when I was a head of corporate strategy. And again, ITU, again, one of the areas where it's is an example how to work in a broad community of stakeholders, and how ITU can convene stakeholders in a very open and inclusive manner to both advocate for this for this issue, but also provide very tangible guidance to countries and then help them to take the actions in protecting the most vulnerable in our societies from the rising cyber threats. Thank you.
Those are really amazing steps that are taken up by ITU and the larger community, and I think it's something which is very needed today. However, today we see that the current cyber landscape around the world is also changing dynamically. We see a lot of polarization, especially in the domain of ICT. So how do you look at this challenge, and what do you think we can do as a community to again bring our focus back on the agenda, on the goals that are to be achieved?
So thank you, Sanjana. Indeed, cyber landscape is becoming more complicated, but it's not only cyber landscape. I would say that our general both geopolitical landscape and also national political landscapes are becoming rather complicated. So if you look, what's happening around the world and reading news every day, you see sometimes rather disturbing news, and you see how let's say, there are lots of challenges that we're facing as human beings, and especially the challenges in terms of, achieving joint prosperity and common prosperity, working together towards common goals, and so on. So cyber issues are not, I would maintain, they're not isolated. They're just part of, they're part of the kind of broader, increasingly complex world we're living in. But of course, they're now becoming bigger and bigger part of this world. And with the COVID just demonstrated how important generally connectivity is, how important for us online services is, how important for us to be in part of the digital world. And what that means, that also means the stakes are much higher now, because, if some time ago, losing access to your computer or internet might have meant that you can do all the other things, you just, have to kind of, have a break from work. Now that means that your whole life could stop, and your whole life could be disrupted. And regretfully, you can no longer say, "Oh, I'm not connected to that. I'll just stay out of it." We see also that being part of, especially with the COVID-19 isolations and the lockdowns and remote work, increasingly it's not an option being outside the digital world. So the stakes are really getting higher. Stakes are higher for individual people. Stakes are higher for countries and nations. So, and therefore, of course, this whole debate about cybersecurity, cyber sovereignty, digital sovereignty, about self-sufficiency, or on the one hand, also ability to use digital services is becoming very huge topic, and then the countries need to balance naturally between, online, making sure that the more services are online and they're provided in a secure and resilient way, and also understanding and sometimes, understandably fearing how self-sufficient they are, so whether they will be able to protect themselves and also whether they'll be able to sustain their own digital services in the future world. And I think there's a lot of, so the interests range from protecting citizens, national security, but also economic interests, and this world that's now becoming very complex. And I think in all this complex world, what's the most important thing, what I would maintain, we need to continue the dialogue, and because only through dialogue we can build further trust and we can maintain those relationships. And that's has been the crucial role of United Nations since inception. And even, I would maintain ITU since inception. As you know, ITU was created even before United Nations and then became United Nations Specialized Agency. So as I like to say, ITU survived at least 2 world wars. ITU survived the Cold War, and there's always been a place where people would come and talk and exchange views, and through the dialogue build trust and maintain connection, and hopefully help us to maintain that ability to work together, that ability to communicate, among ourselves, even when we have different views, even when we have different visions. And I believe, I really hope and I believe that you will continue to be that forum of communication, of dialogue, of understanding, together with the broader UN family, and then of course together with a much broader multi-stakeholder family around the world. And I think I would maintain that is the most important for all of us going forward. So if I summarize a little bit where we can, so I think these are kind of some of the blocks that maybe three main points where we're going forward. So first of all, we understand the very importance of connectivity, of not leaving anyone behind. We understand that is super important, especially in the post-COVID world. And I think that's why ITU has played a big role, both in galvanizing, global action, including through such initiatives as Connect 2020 agenda, now Connect 2030 agenda, but also actually taking specific steps of helping the countries, from coordinating radio spectrum to issuing standards to helping countries with the regulatory policies in place. Then second is to ensure that that development to the extent possible is inclusive and also resilient and sustainable, and that as well, I think, we still see some gaps there. ITU has been working with that, but a lot, but we still see some gaps, and I call it in my belief, what we need to do is raise ambition on sustainability, and probably raise even further ambition on inclusiveness, especially when we talk about least developed countries and we talk about gender gaps. And finally, we need to recognize that the world is complex and complicated, and also, and especially when we work as a global international community, we have different views, we have different understanding, we have different interests. But I hope, and that's kind of my third point, and I believe that ITU will remain this crucial place of dialogue, understanding, and collaboration, in which we, at the minimum, maintain our ability to talk to each other, and at the maximum, galvanize our joint action towards joint goals going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really hope that this dialogue, it moves forward, and we have many more dialogues so as to bridge this gap, as well as to gain more awareness. And I would like to, on behalf of the CyberDiplomat, I would like to thank you for this meeting. And it was great having you and great listening to your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sanjana. Looking forward to any further opportunities to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.